Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Athlete Podcast. Today, I'm joined by a virtual Roberto LaCourt, who joins us from, is it Manchester or are you down south?
London.
London. Okay, so Roberto joins us from London today. We're going to talk about how he got into boxing, balancing that alongside his education, and a little bit about discipline, mental health, all those things that sort of you don't think about when you think about a sport, you know. So we'll start by how did you get into boxing?
Yeah, so my dad first took me in a boxing gym when I was 5 years old. Um,
Mm,
because my dad's a personal trainer, so he's really big into fitness.
yeah.
Um, so he just dragged me along, and I used to hate it because it was just after school, and he would just kind of force me to come. And I
Yeah,
was
yeah.
just young, I was just a kid, and it's quite tough training, so I didn't used to enjoy it at all. But then as I got older, I started to understand the benefits of it, and I started to really enjoy it because I started to understand the technicality of it. Um, the fitness aspect started I started seeing benefits in my life a little bit more.
Yeah, yeah.
And then by the time I turned 11 years old, I started competing. And I never
Mm,
actually really thought about doing like national competitions or anything. It was just always kind of an extra thing I was doing in my life. But then when I was 12,
mhm,
I thought, you know what? Let me just go to a national championship and let's see what happens. And I got beat in the quarterfinal.
mm,
But then I kind of, for the first time, I understood that I actually had potential of going that whole way of going into winning national championships and trying to compete for represent my country in the sport.
yeah.
Following year, I won a national championship, and then from then on, it was kind of history. Like it just became a big part of my life alongside school. I was just
Yeah.
boxing and going to school.
Yeah, so I read in your the athlete bio that's on our website that you sort of started, but you didn't really take to it, but you were still there and sort of mimicking what other people were doing in the gym. And then
Yeah,
as the years went on, you got more and more involved in it and continued sort of honing the skills that you were watching the other people, master at the time. Um, so how does the competing and whatnot, how does that affect being in school and your social circle and things like that?
yeah. So I mean, it's really difficult to compete in boxing because it's a big event. Like you've got to think, really focus on it. It's not like you just go and play a
Yeah.
football match. It's like it's you against one other person. You'll be thinking about it for weeks before, and you can't really focus on anything else. So when I'm at school, I'll just be thinking about boxing all the time, and
Hmm.
especially when I've got a fight coming up, I don't really go hanging out with my friends after school or anything like that. It's just got to be
Yeah, yeah.
all the time. Obviously, I can't just not go to school. But a lot of other kids who I used to box with would just stop going to school around the time of boxing. They didn't really take school seriously. But
Yeah,
unfortunately, my mum wouldn't have condoned that at
yeah.
all. Um, so yeah, for me, it was just when I have a boxing fight coming up, that was just
Yeah.
my focus. Even when I was a kid, 11 years old, 12 years old, it's all I'd be thinking about. Even when it comes down to the food I'm eating, everything like that, I'll be
Mm.
coming to school with chicken salads, putting no like seasoning on it or anything because we have to cut in weight.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was tough, you know. And then all the other kids are laughing at me like, "Oh, you're eating all this rubbish food." But it's just one of those things I had to deal with at the time.
Yeah, but I think generally the vibe that I've gotten from a lot of the athletes that have come through is that you sort of start off with your big friend group, but then the people that maybe don't understand what you're doing as much, they sort of like it sort of gets trimmed down to the people that get it and they understand and they sort of empathize with what you're having to do to continually stay at the level that you want to be at and improve through that time as well.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. In a way, I mean, it's difficult because you're doing such a specific thing. None of the
mm.
other kids are so devoted to something, so a lot of people just don't understand it.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So you mentioned you were like cutting weight and things like that, taking plain chicken salads to school.
Yeah.
What did your training look like at this time? How regular was it?
Yeah, so from year six, that's when I started training 6 days a week. So that would
Jesus,
be,
okay.
yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So I'll be going to the boxing gym 3 days a week. That was Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday.
Hmm.
And then Monday, I'm not sure if it was Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. But
Yeah.
then after school, I'd go home and do my own training. So I'd be going doing running around the park. So there used to be a little park right next to where I lived. It was
Yeah.
about 400 meters, and I was just be doing laps around it for about half an hour, 45 minutes. And then
Yeah.
I used to put on these like when I was really young, I used to put these YouTube boxing tutorials on.
Mm.
I would just be there practicing, watching it for like 20, 30 minutes. And then I'll just end the session off with a skipping session for like 20 minutes. So I did
Yeah.
that from when I was 10 years old. When I got a bit older, I grew out of the YouTube tutorials and I started being able to just kind of do my own sort of routine. But that routine is stuck right until now. So that's still what I do.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, 3 boxing sessions and then 3 cardio sessions. Now I do a bit more strength training now I'm a bit older, but you don't have to worry about that when you're a kid.
Ah, okay. You mentioned skipping. This is always something that's been maybe a question on my mind, right? Is
Yeah.
I can see how obviously skipping it's great cardio, and it also could maybe improve like your footwork and things like that. Is what it's just really popular with boxers. Is there a specific reason for that, or
Yeah, well, when you're hopping like that, you're just bouncing on your toes, it really works your calves. And
yeah?
that specific type of endurance is really important for boxing because,
Ah,
especially in
okay.
amateur boxing, you're just bouncing all the time. And
Hmm.
to be maintaining that for minutes, it would really burn your calves out a lot. Because I've been skipping since I was a kid, I don't even feel that. I can skip
Yeah.
for 2 hours and I wouldn't even feel it wouldn't be a problem.
Jeez.
Um, then you've got the cardio aspect, and it's also just a great way to warm up. It's great for coordination. So I just start every boxing session with 20 minute skipping normally.
Ah, okay, okay. Well, it makes a little bit more sense to me now. Um, so in terms of moving on up education wise, you might maybe be 14, 15, you're doing your GCSEs at that point, and now you've got another responsibility thrown into the mix. You've got obviously your social life, you've got family, you've got boxing, and now you've got revision.
Yeah,
How do you feel like competing and focusing on your sport? Do you think that ever affected your revision
yeah,
and
yeah. I mean,
studies?
it's really difficult to do both at the same time. So
Mm,
during my GCSE year specifically, I I was really stressed about GCSEs, and that was actually my worst season in boxing.
yeah,
So before GCSEs, I'd won 2 national titles in 2 years. But then I came on
fantastic.
to, yeah, thank you. And then I came on to do GCSE year, and then I
Mm,
lost my first 3 fights of that season, even though I was training really hard because I was just thinking my head wasn't in the right space at the time.
yeah,
So then after I got beat in a national championship, and I thought, I'm just going to focus on GCSEs this time for a couple months. I just had to do
hmm,
that, and it worked out really well because on the back of the boxing, I kind of had the momentum of training hard and having a routine. So I just converted that into studying,
yeah,
and I was able to do really well in my GCSEs. Did the same thing in my A levels, and I did that right up to uni where I would focus on boxing for the first half of the year until nationals, and then when exams come, I focus on those instead. Because doing
yeah,
two at a time is if you want to do both at a really high level, I think it's almost impossible because you can never
absolutely.
fully you can never fully focus on something when you've got such another big commitment at the same time.
Oh no, no, no. You're totally right as well. Especially to be getting the sort of grades that you need because you went to Oxford,
Yeah,
which is in itself a huge achievement. But then you stayed there for 4 years. Or in all honesty, I might not even be correct. It could be five, maybe even six, to gain the diploma that you left with. Um, but then you came away with a master's in chemistry,
yeah.
which is it's not child's play that.
It isn't. It's a lot of hard work. But you know what? I think if I didn't do boxing, I
Mm,
don't think I would have been able to do any of it because
yeah,
the skills I learned from in the boxing gym when it comes to determination, commitment, um,
yeah.
like kind of doing your own project. I worked on those skills from when I was 6 years old in the boxing gym, and then when it came
Hmm.
to school, it wasn't that hard. Like I wasn't very stressed about exams at all. It just came as second nature. When it came to revision, I was like, you know what, this is no problem. When all the other kids, it
Hmm.
was the first time where they kind of had to do all this work by themselves. I was used to doing
Yeah.
that sort of thing where you're working at home, whether it was boxing, instead it was just revision for me. So, like I
Hmm.
said, I think
Hmm.
without boxing, I wouldn't have made it into Oxford. I wouldn't have been able to get through Oxford. Yeah,
I mean, no, no, I think you're completely correct as well. because for a lot of children, it's sort of like this wake up call where
Hmm.
you're just sort of on your own, and it's maybe even the first time that they have to police themselves while they're doing something.
Yeah,
Because I know for me, it was definitely the first time I had to just like take it, and it was just me on my own. Especially before A levels, where the coursework and things like that was never really uh, it wasn't so prominent really in my GCSE years, but it it's definitely the discipline and the sacrifices that you make through a sporting career is it is very similar
yeah,
to that sort of area of your life when you're having to, like I said, police yourself. And it is really really difficult too.
yeah.
Um,
You know what else? You know what else it was? It was when you have exams coming up and
mm,
all these other kids that everyone gets really stressed for exams. But for me, I was just thinking, this is a piece of cake for me. 3 times a week,
yeah.
I'm coming up against someone trying to take my head off, and I'm really worried about writing something on a piece of paper. Like it just doesn't make any sense.
Oh no, no, you're right. I remember the exam stress in school was honestly it was the talk of the town for a little bit.
Yeah,
Um, so along the lines of discipline, you mentioned it yourself, and the resilience, the discipline that you had that you'd built up from being an athlete from a young age is it can really help you in other different areas of your life. But this I think discipline is one of the things that when you think of a sport, you think of the training, you think of the competing, and maybe the nutrition, and that's about it. But there's this what I've always found interesting, at least, is that this is whole world that revolves around it that nobody ever sort of bats an eye over. Things like the sacrifices that you have to make, things like your social circle. You might have to miss out on important key dates in like with your family and things like that. Um, and then just the general discipline of having to eat well every single day to build muscle to continue progressing. What was your view on the sacrifices that you had to make?
yeah. Well, I'm just gonna be honest. It is hard because I had to cut myself out of a lot of social situations
Yeah,
after school when kids are hanging out playing football or going to fish and chip shop. I would be going straight home and going to the boxing gym, and I just did
yeah,
that years on end. And some people might say I missed out on a lot as a kid because I wasn't just, I wasn't going down the park playing football after school.
mm,
But for me, I mean, I've just got so many benefits and I've just learned so much. I've just got this whole skill of boxing that I just wouldn't have had if I was just playing with my friends and doing all this stuff that all the other kids were
yeah,
doing. So although I felt like I was missing out on the time in hindsight, I'm so happy I've kind of gone down that route. And yeah, nutrition is tough, especially as a boxer, because you've got to be
hmm,
eating well, but you also can't be eating unhealthily.
yeah,
So even now, like if my friends are eating at a restaurant or something, I just got to say no, I can't do that. Maybe I'll hang out and I'll just like sit there and bring a packed lunch, but that's not really something I would like to do. Looks a bit silly. So it is a sacrifice, but it definitely is worth it for me. The
yeah,
benefits are very obvious when you start doing something like that.
hmm, hmm. And so when you were when you were sorry, when you were growing up and things like that, what did a regular meal look like for you when you were training?
Yeah, so here's my general diet when I'm boxing. When I was
Hmm.
at school, I would wake up, have 3 Weetabix in the morning, get a bit of carbs, get a bit of energy going for school.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, I have a little packed lunch. And my dad he would kind of design it for me, and he would try and make it sound exciting. It wasn't. It would be like
Okay.
chicken, and normally it would just be chicken and pasta with some broccoli.
Yeah.
That is the baseline like normal thing I have. Like sometimes if I want to change things up, I'll change the chicken for tuna or turkey.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, that. And then I could change the pasta for rice, and that was about as exciting as it got, really. And then I get to do the same thing for dinner. I wouldn't have any pesto or any seasoning on the pasta when I'm really trying to cut weight because that would add extra calories. And
Yeah.
you're trying to cut, you've got to be really kind of very strict with what you're putting on your food because you can put a
Yeah.
little bit extra olive oil or something on it like that, and then it will just boost how much like energy it's giving you, and it will stop you from losing weight.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
Yeah, my diet was quite boring. It was quite straightforward. And I remember I used to wake up and then eating Weetabix would just be the highlight of my day. Like I would eat it like I would think it's like a chocolate cake because you just get used to just eating such bad food that Weetabix would taste so sweet. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I used to eat.
I mean, especially when it's plain pasta. I wouldn't be able to get through it.
Yeah,
Couldn't
you get
even
used
have
to it.
like maybe a little bit of seasoning on the chicken, nothing like that.
A little bit. We had like this seasoning mix called adobo that we used to put on. It would be like
Uh-huh.
salt, like a bit of garlic and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay. No,
So it
that's
wasn't actually. Maybe I'm being a bit of a drama queen.
no. I think anyone would go a bit crazy if they had to eat plain chicken and pasta every single day.
Yeah,
Especially when you're cutting weight as well, and your stomach is just it needs more, but you know you can't have any more.
yeah.
Um,
And then
so
you
for
got
the
the training as well on top of that.
oh,
it's
it
different.
must take it. It must take it all out of you.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
must.
yeah.
So for the people that don't know, which might be me, but I'm going to say for the people that don't know, what is the purpose of a cut?
So in boxing, we have specific weight categories that you box at,
Yeah.
and in the boxing community, everyone cuts a little bit of weight for a
Hmm.
fight if you're taking it seriously because that'll give you the advantage if you're a little bit bigger than the weight class that you're boxing at. So you're a little bit
Yeah.
taller, for example. That's why I'd want to cut weight because if you're a little bit taller, you've got a little bit more reach, and then
Hmm.
you can use that. Like it's much easier to box someone if you've got a longer arm. You can keep them back a little bit more.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
everyone cuts. If you don't cut, you're going to end up fighting bigger people, and it's going to make it. You're going to have a disadvantage. So that's kind of why we do it.
Okay. Okay. Right. So let's get back onto the timeline now. So we were at uni.
Yeah,
So you were competing in what's called BUCS, which is
yeah,
the British University Championships. Could you tell us a little bit about that competition and who sort of competes in it and what it's like when you widen the, because that's almost like a national for maybe a track or field athlete, isn't it? Could you tell
mm,
me a little bit about widening that pool of talent to especially when you get older as well? There's people that are at much different stages at like 18, 19.
yeah,
Um, how does that affect competition? How did you deal with it?
yeah. So the way box works in boxing is it's a 3-day competition.
Yeah.
You have fights and you have a fight on a quarterfinal, semi-final, final. And
Okay.
then for boxing, there's three different categories, and they do it with less than experienced boxers, kind of development boxers, and then elite boxers. So I was in the elite category,
Okay.
and there actually aren't that many elite boxers who go into university. There's a lot of boxers kind of drop out of school around 16, and like university isn't really something they think about. A lot of them
Yeah.
some of them go into like sports science degrees and stuff like that though. So the elite category I was in, there are only four people in my weight for that. Yeah, my weight for on the year that I competed in it. But
Yeah.
for the less experienced categories, because you get so a lot of people starting boxing when they go to university,
Hmm.
it's a bit more popular.
Okay.
So, um, yeah. So, like I said, though, there's a lot of it's a little bit less competitive than you'd expect for other sports with bucks, just because not many people go into university from boxing.
Yeah.
But the people who are in my weight were quite good. Um, yeah. So I'm gonna be honest, I can't remember the rest of the question.
It's just sort of how moving up to that level and at the age everyone's at and things like that, how it maybe differentiated competing from when you're a bit younger, maybe A
Yeah.
level sort of year 11 time.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously, it's the same sport at the end of the day. The rules are the same, but when you turn 18, just in general, not just at uni, you end up taking the head guards off. So that's a
Yeah.
big adjustment for boxers because
Okay.
you feel a lot of the impact on your face is much more strong, and you're not used to. You don't normally practice without a head guard.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
anyone stepping in the ring at uni or just when they turn 18, quite a big adjustment.
Okay. So is that something that you train for when you mentioned that you use the head guards in training? And I
Yeah,
assume that's maybe to minimize injury or you don't want to be training and get a concussion, do you?
yeah,
Um,
exactly.
but is that something that you work into your training just so you're used to the feeling of fighting without one?
Yeah, so I practiced one time before my fight, just without a head guard and sparring, just
Yeah,
see how it felt. Yeah, yeah, just a little,
not good. Good.
I had a little crash course. I had a little crash sparring crash course, but you
Yeah.
know, I think it did the job because I ended up winning bucks and everything like that. So it all works in my favor at the end of the day.
Oh yeah, and that's sort of like the top level for where you're at, right?
Yeah,
Um,
for uni competition.
hmm
Yeah,
hmm So it's almost like winning the nationals. Is there a nationals that you could qualify for outside of that, or is it just sort of all down to the companies and whatnot that set up the fights then?
yeah. No, if you, so a uni championship and the national championship is a different framework. So
Okay.
so I've done the uni championship this year and a lot, no, in 2023, so last year. And then now I'm training for the general nationals, which are outside of uni.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. um, so like that, I can try and get onto GB, Team GB pathways and everything like that.
Yeah, so that is sort of how the pathway looks, especially for someone that wants to go to university and get an education that you can still compete. And then there's a clear pathway if you want to continue following your sport to the higher level Team GB. And then, I mean, the sky is the limit really with boxing. You're very lucky because it's obviously unlike a martial art. Obviously, a few of them are featured in the Olympics, but boxing is one of those sports that is that you can go and compete in on the top level, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you can go. The thing with boxing is you can go do the amateur route where you try and go to the Olympics, but a lot of people also just go straight into professional boxing,
Yeah,
which is once again a completely different framework.
that's all sponsors and things like that, and you've got to be really on it with that,
Yeah,
right?
self-sufficient. You've got to be able to sell tickets for your fights, and
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, it's a bit. It's not like any other professional sport. Like it's not like you just go professional in football, and
Yeah.
you've got a club paying you 100 grand a week straight away. You've got to sell your own tickets. You've got to promote your events,
hmm
especially if you've got a lot of boxers haven't won national titles and stuff, and they just want to go straight into professional boxing.
Yeah.
Um, and it's a big challenge for them because it's only their mates who are coming to watch their fights instead of having a big social media platform or whatever, having a big audience, like seeing Jake Paul and KSI fighting or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't have that sort of online prominence where loads of people just watch their fights. So it's yeah, it's not easy professional boxing.
Yeah. It's if you're not Jake or Logan Paul, it's pretty difficult to get a huge pay per view on Sky and
Yeah,
have it on
exactly.
DAZN and everything like
Yeah, you
that.
actually have to be really good at boxing, which they're not.
I will admit though, when all that stuff was happening, I was not expecting them to be anywhere near as big as they got. They're
Yeah,
huge. It
yeah,
was almost unbelievable.
yeah.
Um, okay, so let's sort of let's talk about what getting into boxing looks like and
Mhm.
how someone that might be interested, even in any sport really, what maybe some of your tips would be.
Yeah. So I mean, the first thing that a lot of people come to me asking, "Oh, Roberto, how do I get into boxing?" And the first thing I say is join an amateur boxing club. For any
Hmm
beginner, an amateur boxing club is the best way to go because um, if you want a personal trainer for boxing, firstly, I've seen millions of personal trainers in parks and gyms who just haven't got a clue what they're doing. Like they're holding pads, making people
Yeah,
throw 100 punches and just standing still, and it just doesn't make any sense. I've known more about boxing than these personal trainers since I was 9 years old.
yeah.
Um, the first thing is don't find a personal trainer who's going to rip you off. Go to an amateur boxing club, which will
Yeah.
be it won't be that very expensive normally, and they'll normally have quite good experienced coaches.
hmm
Um, so if you can find one in your catchment area, that's a great way to start. Then
Yeah.
obviously, actually, once you've joined a boxing club, actually go to all the sessions, train 3 times a week. Don't just
Yeah.
roll up 1 time a week and think, oh, I'm a boxer now, and start trying to fight people in your school. Don't try to fight people in your school anyway.
True.
Yeah, you got to commit yourself to it, train regularly, and also outside of the gym. Like I said, when I was watching all these YouTube tutorials, that made a big difference for me because
Yeah, yeah.
before you do something, the quicker you're going to learn it. And with boxing, there's a million different things you got to work, you got to learn. You got to learn the footwork, how to keep your hands up, how to move properly. And the only way that can come to you is by practicing for hours on end.
Oh yeah, no, hours, weeks, even years on end too,
Years.
to get all that sort of stuff down. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe I will go for a personal trainer as long as there's a park near me that's got a set of steps, and we can take a Bluetooth speaker and go all Rocky mode on that.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah. That's fun
so
as well, to be honest.
is that something that you did do?
Well, running on
No running
steps.
up and down
Yeah, I
steps.
have. There's like a set of steps in my house. My dad would take me up there. I'll be doing sprints up the hill, and then we would do a little run around like a building, and I'll actually do
Mm,
sprints up these steps along with like
God.
burpees or some other training up top of the steps.
So your story is really, really grassroots then, just straight
Yeah,
down to the family,
yeah, it
getting this
is. It
stuff
is.
done.
Yeah,
No, no, it's really, really inspiring because you've got the education part of it, and then also the success in boxing too. Um, so if there were any sort of one piece of advice that you'd give to somebody that was maybe already in the boxing sphere, or wanted to get into it, what would be like your mantra, or one your best tip?
yeah. I mean, firstly, just never have a limit of what you think you can achieve. Because, like I said,
Yeah.
when I started boxing, it was just for fun. And then I just went into a national championship for the crack of it, and now I'm a four-time national
Mm,
champion. Same thing with school. I never thought I'd get into Oxford University, but I just
yeah.
gave it my all when I was studying, and then I ended up with an Oxford degree. And now I finished university, and I have no idea what I'm going to achieve or where I'm going to
Mm,
go. But what I do know is if I work hard and I keep my head down and I stay disciplined, I can achieve anything at this point.
absolutely. I think that's a perfect point to end it on,
Yeah,
if I'm
definitely.
honest. So, thank you for joining us. And I wish you the best of luck with whichever pathway you choose, whether that be academic or you continue following your boxing.
Thank you
Um,
so much.
so definitely keep in touch with all that.
Yeah, 100% will do.